Yeah, I don't know, man. You ever just feel like life is just catapulting towards some greater purpose?
Average podcasts with bloated ego. We are the only DJ crazy enough to tattoo Jackie Brown on his ass.
This is Michael Mann, and I ride with
Extended Clip.
Welcome to Extended Clip. It is episode 395, and I'm one of your hosts, Eddie Averill.
I'm Malcolm Baum.
I'm JT White.
And this month on the podcast, we've been talking about the 60s and 70s in Hollywood. You know, the old guard given their last dying breaths and the new Hollywood young kings who changed the game. And this week, we are talking about a very special film that really bridges the gap between those two categories. A real genius pick here by Malcolm that I hadn't even considered until he brought it to our attention. We are talking about Nicholas Ray's We Can't Go Home Again, the film that he made in collaboration with his students when he was briefly a film instructor. And it is a kind of kaleidoscopic, almost multi-screen video art installation type project rather than a narrative cinema project, but there are the bones of narrative cinema there. But it is really a fantastic document of one of the old guard gods going out with a bang, just like taking the temperature of the youth culture in the way that would be the opposite of what we talked about last week with Otto Preminger's Skidoo. This one, he's really with like these young new left adjacent students and involving real historical events that are happening in the time frame where they're making this experimental movie together, which is of course a document of its own making. It is truly a special movie. Malcolm, you brought it to the podcast. I know you're a big Nick Ray fan, right?
Yeah, I haven't read like so much criticism, but like the one book I did was Godard on Godard, and like just the way he built up Nicholas Ray. You know, I had to check him out. You know, back in my teenage years, and you know, quickly became one of my classic Hollywood favorites. You know, most people like with a love of classic Hollywood, you know, love at least one of his movies, whether it's like, you know, Rebel or Johnny Guitar. I mean, he's got so many classics. And, you know, in choosing this, I didn't quite know how experimental this movie was. Yeah. Like, I knew it was a collaboration with his students, and I kind of like just assumed from the outlook that it was going to, you know, eschew traditional narrative. But right as the movie starts, you know, not only is this, you know, not really, you know, there's some narrative threads to kind of guide you along the way, but the composite imagery factor of it, you know, like, you know, not only is it kind of doing the thing where it has a bunch of images, you know, composited together, but it's also within the frame of another image for pretty much most of it. There's a couple times where it breaks away from that.
Yeah, it's a very strange format where you'll have like a still image, a photograph perhaps, as like the base of it all in 4:3, and then within that there's this like matted, almost looking like a projected screen within it, but not even like evenly right in the middle. It's like on the bottom of it. And then within that projected screen, you'll get 1 to 4 different small images popping up at a time. And it's really just like have to see it to believe it type experiment here.
Yeah. And, you know, given the theme, I figured, you know, with a lot of our choices, we're going to, you know, be seeing a lot of older directors kind of hold on to their style, or, you know, with Skidoo, you know, kind of try to transform it with some like new factors here and there. But like I knew, even though if I didn't know the extent of how experimental this was, just the way it was talked about and written about, I could just tell it's like, okay, like Nicholas Ray, he might be, you know, making some movies for 2050 here. You know what I mean? People might still have not caught up.
He's making movies for the 3-screen experience generation. He's got like May 68 footage next to Nixon getting elected with Temple Run and Family Guy.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. No, there's a couple things where you're like, hey, was, you know, in a roundabout way, did he invent that? And that might be the most relevant one.
Ungenerous but relevant.
Relevant is like kind of like those YouTube shorts, you know, with the subway surfers at the bottom, Temple Run. I felt like in our examples, we were going to have a lot of old directors showing their age. And, Nicholas Ray does show his age here.
Yeah,
but,
it's absolutely a film about dying.
About dying and being old and relating to younger people. But, I mean, it just shows that, he still had a couple tricks up his sleeve, still being radical, and like I like, the movie starts with him kind of talking about the murder of Fred Hampton, and I guess I didn't quite know. It just watching this movie, I didn't know that Nicholas Ray, he seems to be, pretty politically educated, politically involved. I didn't quite know that about him, but so I want to compliment him before I kind of give him a backhand, where it kind of like, that's like when you go into class and the old teacher's telling you, it's like, I was there at the protest, man. Like, I know how that's like, and what, that does deserve respect. But it is like, with this movie mostly being about Nicholas Ray mentoring his students and guiding them through this exercise, it almost kind of starts first day in a new lecture. Ray kind of lays his cards on the table politically. This is just such an interesting movie.
Dave Dellinger, Quaker. Abby Hoffman, Bill Kunstler. We heard that Fred Hampton had been murdered in one of the most shameful ambushes ever perpetrated on any group of people in the United States. The confrontation had been too tough. Most people began to disappear. What really made me wonder was, where is everybody?
Hey, schmuck! What made you think of growing a beard?
Charlton Heston, playing Moses.
No, I thought it was just fantastic, and I'm still wrapping my mind around it because, like, obviously in something like this, there's like the docu-fiction like angle of it too, because like there like some parts of it that like are what appear to be Ray like talking directly to his students and things like that, and then there's stuff that like seems more like, I don't know, student film stuff or like collaborative work that he made with his students. But it's just like something where it's just like so hard to take that on like face value. And like, I mean that in a positive, because it's just like you look at the way some of the shots are set up and like that might be able to lead you to believe, okay, well, this is not a recreation. This is whatever. But when he has like some of those setups, like one of my favorite things in the movie is when he is talking to the bearded student who also has a fucked up eye, and he's like, look, I'm old, you're young, we both have fucked up eyes. Like that's they're bridging the gap between generations there. But there is an element there of like, okay, well, like how real, how fake is this? And it's just like, I mean, obviously impossible to tell, but I think that just like makes the work richer. And just in general, like thinking about like this in the whole grander scheme of what we're talking about aged like Hollywood directors making movies that are like, or for a lot of those directors, there's like the relaxed end of late style where it's just someone like who has like, I don't know what you guys are both saying, where they have like a set way of doing something that just kind of like slows down a little bit more. But I think like Ray and Sam Fuller are two guys who like their late career work. I mean, Fuller, I think like is a little bit more like conventionally like doing what he was, because even into the 80s, like him doing White Dog, like it's like new, but like he's sticking within a certain like scheme that he already has. But those movies, like those directors, and I mean, I think in part because of the budgetary constraints they've had to work throughout their careers, and also just like the type of films those guys were making, I feel like they have some of the like quote unquote sharpest like late style movies. I mean, to be fair, Ray died at like 67. Yeah. So you don't get like too much into late style. But here it's just like so effortlessly like hip. And I think it's like this admission of like being an old man within it. And then just like the style of the film itself. It's just like the like, I mean, I hate to just describe like cool to it, but it's like stylish and an experimental in a way that like the heads would explode of some other old Hollywood filmmakers if they even remotely interacted with something like this. And I just have to give it up to him for that alone.
Yeah, I mean, the people who were making great films beside him at like RKO or wherever else he worked in the 40s and 50s in his true heyday, their reaction to this, like, I would have to imagine if any of them saw it, would be like in Mad Men when Don Draper listens to the last song on Revolver, and like it's like the montage of like the whole world changing around him. Basically, he just like shuts that shit off. He's like, this shit sucks. That's like what John Ford would be like 10 minutes into a screening of this, probably.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is just like, he has to get the crown here in terms of like the most fiercely independently made movie by someone who, worked within the classic Hollywood system.
Yeah.
Like,
Him and King Vidor. There's some late period like video experiments by King Vidor that are
I've heard about
crazy.
those.
Yeah.
Isn't it kind of similar where it's like a film class type thing or no?
One of them is called The Lesson.
That's why I think that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's it's like an introduction to metaphysics basically.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, it's crazy because, I mean, this is such a total unrelated sidebar, but I guess it's kind of related in terms of the strange journeys of classic Hollywood filmmakers. He was making like populist quasi-leftist movies like Our Daily Bread, and then just became like super right-wing, and then in his late life was just like transcendent of that. Was like, yeah, I'm actually into metaphysics now.
It's that never-ending search for meaning, man. It'll lead you to some crazy places, I guess.
Left wing, right wing, give me the infinity wing.
I'm just trying to transcend,
That's how I feel these days.
I just want to float to the skies like an angel, what I mean? That's what my political beliefs are.
I want to do the King Vidor cycle, but skipping over the part where I adapt Ayn Rand and stuff like that, But anyway, yeah, so this movie is just ridiculous. One thing I was reading about it, the first time it was screened for any like colleagues and critics, people were like, this is how conservative people still were at the time. People were like just aghast that it showed Nicholas Ray like allowing his students to smoke weed and indulging with them once in a while. I'm like, really? That's what you take away from this like avant-garde installation art type movie by the guy who made Rebel Without a Cause? Is that like, I can't believe he smoked weed with his students.
Weed's illegal, Mr. Ray. I don't know if you're aware of this, but you've just documented yourself doing a fucking crime.
But yeah, I mean, the first assignment he gives them is to go shoot documentary footage of demonstrations for the Attica prison riots. And yeah, it's like very like clearly getting right out in front of it, like opening the film, as you said, talking about his own experiences hanging out in Chicago in '68, and then like spreading that to his students by having them go document the response to Attica. And it's just like immediately he's been almost liberated from the super conservative system under which he made movies for so long. And yeah, I just feel like this movie, if you're not a super experimental avant-garde fan, like maybe after 20 minutes or so, the novelty of it being a Nick Ray film might wear on you a little bit, like wear off on you rather, and it just becomes kind of hard to look at. And I get that for some people. Like sometimes it's just like image overload, like there were points in this where I didn't know what to do with what I had in front of me at all,
Sure, yeah.
But then you just kind of like, it moves in movements, like it moves from the political to the deconstruction of romance, where he's telling them like, oh, you have to make a boy-girl movie, like in very broad terms. And you get these two student films that are very bad, like romantic melodrama scenes played side by side next to each other as like this Godardian deconstruction of the Hollywoodification of romance. And it's like, I don't know, the ideas he's working with, the broad strokes are just genius. And I think Godard is the filmmaker this reminded me of more than anything, which is so crazy how full circle that goes with Ray being Godard's perhaps biggest inspiration in cinema.
No, it's really cool because it's in a way, you know, maybe he was already like this, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know what he was up to, but it feels like he's kind of like embracing like the legacy that was kind of built up by like Godard, and like how Godard used to talk about him. It's like him kind of embracing. It's like, yeah, I'm exactly that. In fact, I'll make a Vertov movie. You know what I mean? I'll do you one better. I'll make one of your type of movies. And yeah, it is interesting, like him, kind of like how he interacts with the students and kind of like their like you know, acting styles and like their kind of like sketches that they have. You know, especially at first too, like. You know, you're trying to see if there's like kind of a narrative. So I'm like, is this like the same movie or something?
Yeah.
Or like kind of like the two boy girl like stuff. I'm like, is this like the same scene played two different ways? You know, you're trying to like kind of pick up on its rhythm. And as I feel with most kind of like heavily experimental, where it's like, whether it's like a movie that's outright experimental like this, or even just a more traditional movie that's just is narratively a little bit different than most movies, you kind of pick up on its rhythms as it goes along. You know what I mean? I kind of, at first I'm trying to pick up what's going on, and then I feel like it all kind of connects with like Ray just kind of mentoring these students in a way, and kind of reflecting on this kind of new reality he's created within his film class.
Yeah, it's just so interesting to see that, like, I mean, obviously there are generational, like, butting of heads that occur, like, I don't know, consistently. But I think the, like, late 60s, like 68 in America, I think is just, like, one of the most, I mean, 68, like, globally, like, pretty huge, like, time for, like, left politics. And just to see the way, like, his students, like, I think it's really funny, the scene where like they mention like a few, like, you made like Rebel Without a Cause, like Party Girl, like just like his filmography being listed to him, and like even like obviously presumably like film students, just at the time, how like, I don't know how much they like just are willing to give him shit, and like just like, well, you gotta earn your place, old man, like that kind of like attitude. That in the project in and of itself, like lending like credence, and I mean obviously like there's a shaky quality to like the student films, but I think that he, like, by being such an established and like talented filmmaker, I mean to the extent that mattered for him, like making or funding anything like late in life, I think is unimportant, but like for him to like sort of put them on like equal like playing field at a time where like youth protest and like political change is so important, I think it's just like a really impressive like sort of shedding of ego there to like make this like an immensely collaborative effort with like complete amateurs, that it never is like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's like making fun of them for their naivete or anything like that, just having them be on the same like playing field.
One aspect about the youth culture that the film spends a lot of time kind of beating around the bush of, if you will, is sexuality and the sexual revolution and feminism. And Ray was like a filmmaker whose films had so much sexual tension for obviously being in the Hays Code era, and it was like his restraint that he was able to use to express so much in some of these movies. And so it's really interesting to see him kind of tackle these new freedoms where these new movies are, you know, allowing a lot more nudity and sexuality, and there's even theaters that just show hardcore movies all day, or maybe just all night. I don't know about that. But
I think you could catch a matinee, I think, or at least an afternoon screening or something, you know, I don't know.
But I think that is the aspect that he's the most resistant to about like the new culture, and the way he depicts it is very like frank and dark. And yeah, it's just interesting because it's a guy who made such sensuous movies in a time where obviously you couldn't show lovemaking on screen or even refer to it anything less than obliquely. And so like you have scenes like the girl explaining to him why she felt empowered to be a prostitute, and him just like really trying to wrap his head around it, but being completely unable to. But he really, really wants to understand her. It's insane. And like the nudity that's in this movie and like couples in bed together, not actually having sex, but just in bed nude, like it just looks like a snuff film. Like it's so dirty and gross and not like shot in a beautiful way at all, because this film doesn't shy away from beauty when it can find it, you know? And it's just really interesting to me because one, what I said about Ray's films earlier, but two, because Ray, like he had demons, you know, like he was a desperate alcoholic and a total womanizer. Like those were his two addictions that kind of ruined his life for him, you know? And it's what like prevented him from, you know, being seen as, you know, good to go in the eyes of the execs to for a large portion of his later career. And he ruined a lot of relationships and stuff like that. And he went through some other stuff on the other end of it too. Like his relationship with Gloria Graham. I don't know if you guys know about this, but the star of In a Lonely Place. Yeah. I don't know if we mentioned this on that episode, but they were married briefly and he caught her in bed with his son.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, I think we did mention that, but that's still
I don't remember that.
Yeah, fucking insane.
And they ended up getting married, her and the son.
Oh man.
So Nick Ray, like, because it was like a studio marriage too, because they both worked, I think, at RKO. I could be getting the studio wrong here. I don't have those notes in front of me at the moment, but they were about to do In a Lonely Place, and so they kept it quiet that they were separated because he walked in on her with his son while shooting In a Lonely Place. And that just adds such a strange charge to the sexual violence of that movie. Like it's just incredible and makes it so much more complicated. And yeah, I don't know. I think that Ray's like late in life kind of last breaths of trying to reconnect with the generation beneath him, despite all of their flagrant sexuality, really speaks to him maybe trying to come to terms with his relationship with his son and Gloria Graham. Like it's a really, I mean, how does that not traumatize you for life?
Yeah,
you know,
of course. I mean, what JT was talking about before with like kind of like the students kind of having like digs on him, like that same scene where they're like listing his movies is like, oh, you made Rebel Without a Cause. That's cool. It's like, then why are you here? You know, and like,
shouldn't you have millions of dollars?
Yeah, shouldn't you have money or whatever? And like, you know, especially at the end too, like there's a heavy feel that like Nicholas Ray is like a recluse, you know what I mean? Kind of like someone who's, you know, escaped, you know, the Hollywood system, you know, after learning that, you know, understandably so, you know what I mean? I mean, my God, something like that, it is like, you're like, you know, that's like a classic thing in an old movie where you see like an old drunk at the bar and it's like, oh man, you know.
Let me tell you about how I was the best director in Hollywood for 20 years until my son cucked me.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, you know, it's you're not even hearing from him. It's just two guys being like, you know, what's that guy's story? He's always here. It's like, you know, he's got a damn good reason to be here. Yeah. Trust me.
I mean, he was like a non-voluntary recluse seemingly from the public eye. Like he married after that and was living in Europe for a while because, you know, like he got his shots to do some late collapsing Hollywood movies. Like he did King of Kings, you know, which is like a classic super stale epic from an old master that's 4 hours long or whatever. That's just like a great signifier of Hollywood dying. But he was trying to get some projects together in Europe and it just never happened, you know, like he just couldn't get it together. And this film is just such a great document of him just like giving himself over to another generation and realizing that like what he has to give is otherworldly knowledge of cinema. Like he figured out the sauce to make some of the great movies of all time, and the least he could do at this point in his life is pass that on to another generation, and that's extremely moving, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, again, just in terms of being telling as to where he is, like when I first heard of this movie and knew it's like, okay, Nick Ray, like working with students, like making a movie like that, like I was like, oh, okay, so he must be at like UCLA, NYU, something like that. Not to shit on Binghamton University, but like I don't know, it definitely is a testament. It's a public research university.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's not getting those big private school bucks for this teaching gig.
Yeah, I mean, even that girl who was talking about prostitution was saying she was going to put the money toward the student film. Like, clearly they don't have much resources at the college. Also, the college let him go like a year after he did this.
Yeah.
They were like, all right, we can't have you running around here, you know. And that's when he just went to go die of cancer, basically. I mean, he was sick with cancer for a while, and he was re-editing this film for a while, and then tried to make one last one with the help of Wim Wenders that was completed after his death, which I haven't seen, actually.
Me either.
Yeah, Lightning Over Water. Hey, write in if you've seen it, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that I might have to cue that up next after watching this. But yeah, like I think also Ken Jacobs, who's an experimental filmmaker, helped like run this department or start this film department here. So
that's interesting. I did not know that.
I was trying to look into that because like it says that he started the program, but that doesn't like say anything about like him collaborating with Ray on this movie. And I have a very light familiarity with Ken Jacobs, but just knowing like his style, it's also, if not exactly, you know, it's not like a 1-to-1 in this movie, but they're both very abrasive, and like, and that's, and like the visual style of this movie, there are like, you know, some moments of beauty, but like it does kind of embrace kind of the amateur look and mixes it with like the multi-format, and it's just very, you know, abrasive. Like I said, it
looks like Stan Brakhage at certain points. Like there's like certain points of it that it gets super warped and colored beyond repair, where it looks like maybe they did paint the film or something like that, and it just gets insane. And he's just figuring out other ways to achieve film beauty because he used to have the resources to make beautiful Technicolor widescreen movies, and now he doesn't.
Exactly. I mean, it all really connects. You know, even without the sun cucking, which I didn't know, you know, you just know that he flamed out of Hollywood, you know, due, you know, some might call it his maverick nature, other people call it alcoholism, you know.
Well, back then that was just like not considered a disease. Like addiction wasn't considered real unless it was heroin, you know. So it was just like, he's just got to dry out for a little while. You know?
Yeah, no, like back then it's like if you got fired for being an alcoholic, it's like you were one drop away from like alcohol poisoning.
You got fired from being an alcoholic like before 1960. You got fired for something else that your bosses were too ashamed to admit.
Yeah.
You know?
But it all makes too much sense that like, you know, he is someone who's made traditionally beautiful movies, you know what I mean, with great acting performances. And so it's really cool just to see him try to do something different. And I feel like I feel like it's a success too. Like it is interesting, even like looking up some writing about it. You know, I think there's a lot of letterboxed heads, you know, that are into it now, you know, have kind of developed the palette for it. But even like someone like Rosenbaum definitely like wants to alert people about this movie, wants people to see it, but like kind of says like this is like a beautiful failure or something like that. And, you know, as someone who's like, I feel like I'm not so well versed in experimental movies. I've definitely watched some of them, you know, and we've done, you know, a handful on the podcast, maybe not so many. But what goes on here is like there's like just enough narrative thread here for like a narrative guy like me, a guy who gets off on the narrative, to kind of like just wade your way through, and then you could kind of just you know, if there's a couple minutes where you don't know what's going on, you know, you could really just appreciate the arrangement of the images and just the general attitude that's going on. And also, you know, Nicholas Ray himself is such an interesting character. You know, he like JT bringing up Fuller. It is like, you know, them kind of having more aggressive late styles makes sense because they, you know, they're both kind of wild guys with like kind of uncombed hair, you know what I mean, and you know, who'd walk around in like cool outfits or whatever, like Ray's
Wait, weren't they both eye patch guys too?
Yeah, they're both eye patch. I mean, how are you not going to be a renegade and wear an eye patch? I mean, you have to bring the edge a little bit.
We should do the all eye patch director draft.
Oh my god. that's pretty good. We might have to if we don't fill out the time here, I think that's what we're doing.
I can think of off the top of my head. Like Ford at one point has an eye patch.
Raoul
I think
Walsh.
Raoul Walsh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's already 4 to 5 coming to mind.
Yeah.
There's probably more. Once if they wore an eye patch once on set, that counts.
That counts.
Yeah.
If there's just a photograph of them wearing it, it's like that's enough.
You
So
become an eye patch director no matter what.
someone's got to, I feel like history comes in cycle. Like everyone brings back something from the past. I have not seen someone attempt to be an eye patch director in a while.
Do people still wear eye patches? I feel like
guess that's
nowadays
it,
you
yeah.
probably just wear like special glasses.
Yeah, or even like a glass eye or something like that.
I
Yeah.
knew
Ooh,
there was
that's
like
gross.
a family friend who's this kid I would like look after sometimes. And he, like when he was young, they had him going eye patch mode because he had one eye I think was a little bit lazy, and to make it work, you cover the good eye, I think.
Interesting. What?
And so to like get that eye working a little bit
Yeah, it's
harder.
to get that lazy ass eye,
Yeah.
pull up its bootstraps and get to work.
I've known a lot of people with lazy eyes before, and I feel like I've never heard of this technique. Maybe it's like kind of old fashioned or something.
I mean, this is not too old, but we'll see. I don't know. Maybe it was for a completely wrong reason or a different reason that it's entirely bullshit. That could also be the case.
I love toward the end of this movie when Nicholas Ray is just repeatedly trying to kill himself, and he's failing to tie a noose when he's trying to hang himself, and he's like, I made 10 goddamn Westerns and I can't even tie a noose. A little bit of imposter syndrome there from the faux cowboy Nick Ray.
There's a lot of like good, just kind of like humor in this movie.
Yeah.
Like kind of that's almost kind of comes, in just kind of random points, even kind of wraps back around. Like something that gets brought up multiple times is like the student who has like a dad who's a cop, and like it's that
Don't call my dad a pig.
yeah, like the first interaction, like I'm just dying because it also feels like when I was in a college class and like the student like disagrees with the teacher and they rev themselves up. You could kind of tell like they kind of have to like to really disagree against the teacher. They have to bring a little bit of passion to it, and like and that's that whole thing's just funny. Just the way it starts too, with like Ray playing darts and he almost hits that girl, and then he just I was aiming. I thought I was going to be a security guard. I fucking hate cops, and just being cool in general. But then like towards the end of the movie, we have that same student, and it's like after like Nixon wins, right?
Yeah.
And he kind of like shaves his beard out of like sadness or resignation or whatever. And then he kind of starts going into that diatribe again, like in the mirror. And like he really revs it up to where like it sounds like a old style, bigger than life Nicholas Ray melodrama. And in this context, it kind of it's not as funny, you know what I mean? And then you hear Ray behind the camera, and he's like, just he wants him to go Bresson mode, just just say it. I want it to be believable. And it's just there's a couple times where that happens, where it's like scenes kind of play over in multiple versions, and I feel like you get some real interesting results out of it. And just like that same scenario, just those 3 different like kind of results, where at first it's kind of overheated and funny, and then like it kind of hits me in like a more serious way, and then you get the deconstruction of that. It's just, I guess that's just so exemplary of like the way this movie moves, and just kind of how liberated and how much it enjoys kind of just being like kind of errant and kind of random, and just throwing a lot of these things against the wall.
Yeah, I mean like the that scene where Ray interrupts the student giving himself the pep talk in the mirror while he's shaving his beard is like, to me, the highlight of the movie. Just hearing Ray as naturally as he can actually give direction. And it's so simple. All he's saying is just talk to me, but the like next level calmness in his voice just like signifies to me that this is exactly how he directed James Mason or James Dean. And it's just so moving seeing him like be able to pull back and just like direct an actor with such subtlety and perfection. and achieve this melodramatic catharsis within this total like kaleidoscopic montage experimental movie. Like he just shows that he's still got it at the end. Like, oh yeah, by the way, I can reel you in within 90 seconds, like just really quickly. Also, among the many attempts at his death, there's one really funny one too, where you just see a violent death of a Santa. Like, the Santa suit is covered in like film reels after he's dead, and that was the funniest Santa death since Silent Night, Deadly Night, in my opinion. That was a very funny Santa death. Yeah, I don't know really how to evaluate this film because Ray is such a narrative filmmaker and this is such a non-narrative movie, but I just find its concept so moving, and it's such a great like way to just put a cap on his career because you can never tie it in a nice little neat bow. You know, he had some like really great golden years in the system, but he had a very messy career. You know, like he made a lot of assignment movies. Like no one's going around quoting "Knock on Any Door" with Humphrey Bogart, but it's a 1941 film noir, you know, that he made. Like that, by all accounts, should be good, but it just doesn't work, and it's because he had this troubled career where sometimes he got really shitty scripts and maybe he was too drunk to realize that they were bad. I don't know. Or maybe he just did it because he thought it was his job no matter what. And so to have this like crazy messy film as his quote unquote capstone project, to use educational lingo, I think is just like such a great way to wrap up a career that can't be so neatly wrapped up. And I'm going to go 4 bullets on this one, but that's such an arbitrary score. It could be 5 and it could be 3. Who cares? This is a film beyond valuation. It's just like a really moving document to me.
Yeah, I'm going to go 4 bullets as well. And it is like, this is something that like kind of like defies rate, you know, or, you know, we love to rate here. We'll always rate too. We'll never step away from the plate.
I will rate literally anything.
Yeah,
by
like
the way, on the 5 bullet scale. As hesitant as I was there, like I was a little wishy-washy. It's a 4. Like it is 4 bullets. Ask me anything. Food, items, life experiences. I'm like Forrest McNeil over here from the show Review. I will review anything. Just we only do movies right now. I will rate anything. But sorry, go back to what you were
rate
saying.
it. That's actually a new service we're providing, the Rate Anything service. Yeah. But yeah, like I think, you know, what you're talking about too, you know, his messy life, right? Like in doing some light research, like it seemed like, you know, Ray, he wanted like a movie that reflected real life, you know, because even his, you know, his great movies and all, and the, let alone his movies, you know, all the great movies, you know, they're great, but it's like they're not real, you know what I mean? They could reflect real life emotions and stuff like that, but it's not exactly that. And like it, you know, it's kind of a simple, you know, kind of not simple, but it's just like he's like, you know, life's messy too. Why don't I make like a movie that's messy, you know? And but it really works too because it is like it's also it's self-effacing. And it like kind of takes his own story, which is just so interesting. Just him ending up in just this random film school and just interacting with these students. It's just so moving. Like one of my favorite parts of the movie that I find moving, you know, and it's one of the more traditional scenes. It's kind of just him talking to one of the students and they're kind of walking, and you break away from the composite imagery, and it is just like a shot of him and his student both wearing like red sweaters, walking, like talking about
school spirit,
yeah. You know, talking about like, you know, I found a couple dollars in my pocket. We can get like 3 beers and 2 pizzas. And then they start talking about, you know, it's like, you know, I've started this relationship with this girl, but she's a Jewish girl and I don't usually get along with Jewish girl. And Nick Gray's like, what do you mean? Like, what do you even mean by that? You know what I mean? He's like, do you gives him a great razz. Like, do you get along with any girls? Like, do you, yeah. And like, that student is just so weird. You know, it's, you know, it being film school, you don't know what's real and what's not, you know, who's playing what up for whatever, but just all the stories he has about like his dad being like a detective and him going to like seminary school, you know what I mean? He does. I'll give him the A+. He is the student that stands out. Him and I think the aforementioned student, you know, she talked about getting picked up by a pimp, and then I think it's the same student. Later, they do a scene where they pelt her with tomatoes. A very unprogressive scene there from Nick Ray, slut shaming her with
he's dark woke.
He's dark woke.
Slut shaming honestly is dark woke.
Dark
like
woke.
if you think about it, like I don't think like woke like centrist libs are all that. Like I think you can get there. I think you can do the mental gymnastics.
You know what the angle is I'm anti-pimp. You know what I mean? So it is like, she's talking about how cool the pimp is, what I mean? It's like, you got to wake up, but
be your own pimp, ladies.
Be your own
Be your
pimps.
own pimp.
That's if you take anything away from this podcast, it should be that.
You should be your own pimp.
You should be pimping yourself out.
Taking anything away from this podcast is to read Pimp by Iceberg Slim.
True. I mean, that's
the collab we needed. Fucking Nick Ray making a movie about Iceberg Slim.
I mean, that would have been. I think both this book and this movie comes out relatively same decade.
They're both like early 70s,
and both reflections towards the end of their careers about their examinations of their process. You know what I mean? There's
I'm imagining the stunts and gags Howard Hawks version of an Iceberg Slim movie. Like he could do like a crime film version of it, obviously, but like the screwball pimp movie by Howard Hawks in 1971 would be like the greatest worst movie ever.
There has to be like some like early 30s pre-code movie like that's like about a pimp, but they just like don't explicitly
Well, Frisco Jenny, she's kind of a lady pimp.
Well, there's definitely like movies about
madams.
Yeah, madams. But what about that operation's not going to run itself. Just getting all my info, doing my info dump, just dumping all the info before I pass the baton to JT. That ending too is like apparently like most of those students were living in a commune, and you kind of see it towards the end. And apparently Nicholas Ray did move into the commune with them to help like make this movie. And that's just that. I mean, there's like documentaries about this movie too. Like there's documentaries about Nicholas Ray, teaching this film class. And I really want to check those out too, because, as much as I'm attracted to kind of like the formal qualities that make this so unique, like I'm just very interested in the human story of like Nicholas Ray being, kind of like a flame out from the film industry and like kind of working with this, not so well-known film program, and him just living in the house with them like it's like it's Big Brother, you know what I mean? Like just that's just I would love to see that footage and just some of those convos, because he's such an interesting guy, and this is really, I wish I took this class. This is like the alternate version of this. It's like Nick Ray's School of Hard Knocks, and like it's kind of like a Dangerous Minds cover where Nicholas Ray's centered. He's folding his arms like Michelle Pfeiffer on that one cover, and then all the students are standing behind him like kind of threateningly, and like we're the outlaws of cinema. That's maybe I could, if I have a Nicholas Ray type career in the film industry, I can make like a schmaltzy version of this movie. That would be the ultimate meta thing, and I would get the crown of being the most wild. So I don't know. That's just an idea. But JT, what's your rating? What's your
Oh, man. Thought? I can't wait. 30, 40 years down the line.
Painted a real vivid picture there.
Malcolm Baum's School of Hard Knocks.
True. No more Nick Ray. I just make it myself, too.
Renegade film professor. I'm giving this 4 bullets. Just like simultaneously, just like incredibly perplexing, and just with so many, but also so many like concrete threads that you can pull at to get like just so much like interesting like extra textual information about it. And I think again, ultimately at the end of the day, why the experiment of the film is just so successful to me is because of just that malleable, adaptable quality that Ray is showing here, where like, I don't know, like all great, like, I think educator, relationships. I think there's learning from one another that happens. And I think like just in terms of images that like stick out that I feel like are I don't know, of some level of like thematic importance to me. Like the stuff with Nick Ray at the end, like just like sort of like groping around the barn for a little bit while the students are like hiding in the shadows, like looking at him. Like that's just such a, I don't know. I feel like it encapsulates like the very, even though that's like I don't know, one of the more like the fiction elements in the movie, like it just, I don't know. I feel like it has all the strangeness of this relationship just like purely shown in images, because I think at that point, like they're saying things, but the audio is not there. Just I don't know, a very, very fun experience. And again, like I think if you're a real Ray head, you should check it out.
Yeah, I think it's mandatory viewing. I mean, it's because you got to see where he ended up. You know what I mean?
Ended up. You're not going to not watch the series finale of Nicholas Ray.
You know, and I just before we wrap it up, the Other Side of the Wind just popped in my head, and that's like an example of, I guess, a film like a classic Hollywood filmmaker going radical. Although I have to say, this is probably a little bit more radical just in terms of, the deconstruction. But
well, also he hadn't done anything like this before. Other Side of the Wind is at
true.
least like continuing where his, Wells' late period was leaving off. You know,
that's very true. That's very true. You know, and Wells, quickly got swept out of Hollywood as soon as he, made his mark. So yeah, very different careers. But I guess just for those keeping score at home, I feel like that deserves a mention in terms of kind of classic Hollywood going radical.
Absolutely. We'll be right back on Extended Clip.
Fortunately, I was offered a job in an upstate New York university. Well, I decided I'd buy a crooked cane, grow a goatee, wear a crooked smile, and impress them with my rhetoric, rebellion, and ponderosity.
Yeah, once you pull it off, it'll be like a cool, we had to do this to get this made, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like adds to the mythology of it all, So
You and your mythological ass. You guys watch Drink Champs?
I've watched like an episode, but I think I watched like the episode like where Kanye went crazy in like 21 or something like that.
I had never seen it until I was hanging out with Adrian, and he was saying that we need to do director Drink Champs Q&As on our podcast. And then I realized what he was talking about was they have all these YouTube shorts that go viral. That's just them asking the guest like X versus Y, and if they can't think of an answer, they have to take a shot. That's why they get drunk. And I think it was Jadakiss who just like every single question they proposed, he just kept drinking instead of answering. That was pretty funny.
I came to drink,
I came to drink.
Yeah, the show's Drink Champs, of course. What did were you going in there expecting?
I think we could be good at something like that, if we had
I could probably do that off the dome. I could just fucking freestyle become who's the other guy? There's Noriega and Nori is just his name now.
Yeah.
And who's the other guy on Drink Champs?
I don't know.
Nori and the other guy. All right. So I could be them two combined right now, basically. Let's see. Let me do this. All right.
So are we about to
you guys both have shots of tequila in your hand.
Yes.
Yeah, JT. I'm asking you right now, David Lynch or the Coen brothers?
David Lynch.
That one's easy. Come on.
Yeah.
That one's too easy. Yeah. All right.
Not to critique too hard.
Look, this is off the dome. I didn't think
give
of
Malcolm
these.
one. You softballed me. Come on.
All right, I
Hit him with
softballed
something
you.
hard.
I'm working my way up. All right.
True. I mean, that's how things work. You got to build up to shit.
Malcolm, Nicholas Ray or Sam Fuller? No thinking aloud.
That's hard.
Yeah, take that shot, boy.
All right, 5, 4.
I'm counting. You don't have to count. You got to think.
Ray. But that's
okay. Nope. That's it. Nope. No explanations. You chose Ray over.
I'm just
Fuller.
saying that's tough. That was actually very hard for me to do.
Yeah.
And I kind of, it was like it was hard. Yeah, I feel bad now.
JT, Anthony Mann or Bud Bedecker?
Shit, that's hard too. Man.
All right.
Man, it was...
You avoided taking a shot.
In my head, I said man, too.
All right. Malcolm, Hal Hartley or Whit Stillman?
Whit Stillman.
Whit Stillman?
But
Okay.
I like Hal Hart.
Okay.
Give no explanation. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I just, I just wanted the answers to be hard, no wishy-washy.
No, yeah,
you know?
no, like, qualifiers or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Yeah. JT, James Mason or Robert Mitchum?
God damn it. James Mason.
Okay.
Wow. Can I...
You can also do that one if you want.
No, I have a quick Mitchum anecdote where I was working at this store with this older guy who he found out I was into older movies.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, who's your favorite like old actor? You know, and I was like, you know, I don't know if this is my definitive answer now, but like Mitchum came to mind because I do love Mitchum. And he was like, Mitchum? It's like, didn't he do like a bunch of B movies or something like that? He was like so disappointed by that answer. He was
That's
like,
so funny.
He wanted you to do the
like, what
box.
was his,
He was a
what
box
was his
office
answer?
watcher. He wanted Gary Cooper. He wanted
Yeah.
John Wayne.
Yeah, I think, if I had to guess, it must have been something like that, or like, or what if he just misinterpreted? He's like, you're not Al Pacino, you know, or something like that. He was a weird guy.
Yeah.
Not a fan of that guy, to be honest.
All right, Malcolm. This one is tailored to be hard for you.
Perfect.
Easy for 99% of other people.
Okay, I'm interested.
Dennis Hopper or Eric Roberts?
Hopper, but I do love Roberts. I do
No,
love.
it's gonna be just a little hard.
Yeah.
For you.
That's a good pairing though, in a sense. Like
that's like a 16 versus 1 matchup in
Yeah.
in the that guy side of the bracket.
yeah,
you know?
yeah, definitely.
JT,
Yeah.
Jean-Claude Van Damme or Steven Seagal?
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, that's actually easy.
That
too
was
easy.
pretty easy. Yeah.
Seagal.
You go Seagal on that?
I've just enjoyed. I've enjoyed more Seagal movies than Claude Van Damme might be a better actor, but Seagal's given me more hours.
Yeah. I think Jean-Claude's been in more good movies. He's been in a John
Yeah.
Woo movie.
Oh, yeah.
When you throw a Hard Target into there, it's
Well,
hard
yeah,
to,
I mean,
I would take Hard Target over every
that's
Steven
the thing.
Seagal
Like
movie.
that's the thing of the exercise. You got to think fast. Sometimes you forget certain shit.
All right, you're up again, Malcolm. John Woo or Choi Hark?
Woo.
Yeah,
But I love
that's
both.
tough for me.
That is
to
that's
me,
really
that's a
tough.
drink.
Yeah.
That's
a drink. True.
Yeah.
I guess I have a determination to answer everything.
Yeah.
I get it's sometimes it's like the bias of who I've been watching longer.
Yeah.
Like I definitely rank them pretty close, but it's just like I've been watching Woo movies since I've like been 15, you know.
Yeah. All right. One more. JT, your mom or your dad?
Fuck. I don't like what either answer would say about me psychologically. What you'd be able to project onto me. Yeah, I'm just taking the shot on this one.
That is the correct
That's
answer.
the perfect. You know, I feel like for a lot of people that might be easier than, you know, we might, you know, unfortunately it might be easier than. So that's good. That's good that you took a shot there, you know.
Yeah.
All right, Malcolm, I'm going to give you one that's equally hard.
Yeah.
Lil B or Harmony Korine?
Little B. Little B.
All right, we're
Yeah.
back on extended clip. That was not even in the podcast. I just wanted to know your guys' opinions. No, just kidding.
I'm so dumb. I'm like, dude, I think that was pretty good. I think it should be in the podcast. I think that was pretty fun, man. I don't know.
It was fun.
Yeah,
It was fun.
No, I mean, we got to be honest, we should just start stealing from other podcasts like
Oh
that.
my
I think
God,
that's
yeah.
I think that's the fucking
That would be a
recipe.
good just like review to do, just like one long segment of stealing one little thing from every other podcast.
I think-
we do a little drink champs, we'll do a little rewatchables. We'll do all right. Let's run through the rewatchables for Nick Ray.
No, we gotta save these. I think this should be a new aspect of our show. as
Just
often
sparse, one once in a while.
Yeah, as often as we like, or shit, every week. Depends on what we want to do. But just stealing from other podcast segments. I like that a lot.
I like life advice from Russillo.
Yeah.
You know what we should do is go through the Russillo life advice and answer those questions.
Alternate takes.
Like analyze what those guys said about those guys' answers.
Podcast review.
All right, and to steal one more segment from one more podcast, I feel like back in the day on FMU, Tom Sharpling used to talk about candy bars so much. What's your favorite candy bar?
This is hard. I feel like this question has been asked before on this podcast even, and like it's so I can't just say an answer. Like I really it's whatever is like, it's kind of like the flavor of the month for me, you know what I mean? I'm going to go outside the box, one that I really admire that I don't hear people talk about so much. I'm going to go Payday. I fuck with the Payday. I fuck with the Payday heavy.
Yeah. So that one's just
really?
peanuts, right?
It's peanuts and nougat or whatever nougat is. Peanuts and like just a bunch of processed crap and peanuts basically. But like a bunch of shit on a log or whatever, or ants on a log, but for a candy bar.
JT, what's your favorite candy bar?
That was as thoughtful as like final thoughts. I was expecting a 5 bullet at the end of that.
It's something I always say that if we did like a snack fast food podcast,
God,
we would be so like might even be better than what this is, to be honest. So something to consider.
I feel like I have to say like a Twix bar.
Yeah.
You get like 2 bars in one package. I like chocolate first and foremost, but you get kind of that like nougaty like bullshit like in there as well. Yeah, I don't know. I go with a Twix. Eddie?
Yeah, I have a hard time because all of my favorite candy is ball candy.
Milk Dud? You a Milk Dud guy?
I just like peanut M&Ms and Reese's Pieces, you know? Like
Okay,
those are my 2
interesting.
go-tos. But if I'm going bar,
Yeah, we need a bar.
I'm going Hershey's Specialty Dark. That is my current chocolate bar of choice because I am Fraser Crane. And I live a high class lifestyle. But if they don't have that, I'll go for like either a Twix or a Butterfinger.
Oh, Butterfingers are fun.
Butterfinger's good. They
Actually,
just get too in my teeth.
To be honest, Butterfinger might be the lifetime number one for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say.
I mean, how could Bart Simpson ever steer you wrong? You know,
Almond Joy. I'm just gonna start naming candy. Fuck, you ever have a fucking Almond Joy?
I had
That
a
shit's
friend
so
whose
good.
dad was so obsessed with York peppermint patties. They kept like the Costco pack, like the retail pack in the freezer.
Yeah.
And would actually kind of get mad if you took one. Like, it's like, well, they're mine.
Just using them as Altoids, using them as breath
He
mints.
was like a rich lawyer too, and he was like, "Those are my mints. Like those are my York peppermint patties. Should be."
Hey, money or not, he has to go to the store and get them. So it's still an inconvenience either way.
Thank you for listening, everybody. Join us on the Patreon for $5 a month to get an extra episode every single week. Usually we talk more about movies in the other segments, but this was fun too.
Oh yeah,
that was great.
We got to start stealing segments. Like I said, that's going to be a thing.
Email us at extendedclippodcast@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you at my soonest convenience. And that's it. Bye, everybody.